Good afternoon, everyone. Chairpersons present, the CEOs, the corporation secretaries and heads of legal, the heads of internal audit, as well as the chairpersons of the standing committees on the revitalization and re-energization of RAAs, or the regulatory authorities and agencies in state departments. Welcome to this session, the first of its kind this year, and also wishing those that we have not interacted with the beginning of the year, Happy New Year. And we will commence this meeting now, and allow us to comment this with a word of prayer. Let us pray. Our God and our Father, we once again before you this afternoon. We thank you for the opportunity and the privilege that you have granted us to serve in our various capacities and to serve the people of the Republic of Kenya. As we commence this meeting, Lord, we pray that you be with us, give us counsel, give us your insights, and may the deliverables that are so desired for the benefit of our Kenyan people be achieved and realized within our lifetimes. We thank you and we praise your name, and we pray this trusting and believing in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Alex Moneki. I am the Director, Regulatory Compliance in the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. And I will basically just take you through the formalities, just a reminder of the formalities or the protocols that exist in the platforms or in the Zooms that are conducted by the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. As you can see on your screen, one of the things that we request of you to do is to introduce yourselves in the chat section. Those who are yet to register on the Google form to please do so. This is a requirement, registration in the Google form first, as well as your introduction in the chat section. And as you introduce yourself, remember to indicate your name, your designation, as well as the institution in which you're joining this virtual session from. Now, that should, and we request that you do so in the chat session. Now, on the Q&A will strictly be used for purposes of questions that require answers. So remember, the introductions will and should be done in the chat section, and the Q&A will be used purely or purposely for the questions that would require responses from the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. With that, I will wish to welcome our Principal Administrative Secretary, Mr. Arthur Osia, to give us the message or to give us his remarks and the message from the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. Karibu sana, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alex. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Distinguished chairs, chairpersons, chief executive officers, and colleagues from across our regulatory authorities and agencies, good afternoon. On behalf of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, I formally welcome you to the engagement this afternoon that brings together the leadership of regulatory authorities and agencies and the standing committees on the revitalization and re-energization of regulatory authorities and agencies. We are all aware of the ongoing campaign to revitalize and re-energize regulatory authorities and agencies, spearheaded by the Office of the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service. This exercise is firmly aligned with the mandate of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service to promote efficiency, good governance, and the overall effectiveness in the public service. It equally supports the government priority agenda of delivering public services that are transparent, responsive, and citizen-centered. Over the past 2 years, we have laid a strong foundation for evidence-based performance tracking across the regulatory sector. The year 2026 marks the third year of the campaign. The directive from this office is therefore to consolidate the gains achieved, sustain the campaign's momentum, and institutionalize robust mechanisms for measuring and evaluating regulatory impact on citizens, shifting the focus from inputs and activities to tangible outcomes and results. Officers from this office will shortly elaborate on the specific expectations for each regulatory authority and agency, particularly in this pivotal year when Kenyans rightly expect to see measurable results. My appeal to us is to go the extra mile. We are well conversant with the tenets of the campaign. The task before us is to challenge ourselves to deliver beyond compliance and demonstrate real, visible impact. As often said, what gets measured gets done must remain at the core of our work as regulators. If we are deliberate in defining clear indicators, tracking performance consistently, and interrogating our results honestly, we will inevitably drive meaningful action and improvement. Measurement is not merely a reporting requirement. It is a discipline that sharpens focus, strengthens accountability, and compels delivery. The revised edition of the reporting tool, issued on October 2025 and further refined for the March 2026 biannual returns, reflects the growing maturity of this reform journey. The biannual reports submitted to date reveal both notable progress achieved under the campaign and specific challenges that continue to constrain the optimal performance of certain regulatory authorities and agencies. The reporting tool has been a game changer, shifting our focus beyond data collection to delivery, impact, and measurable value to the Kenyan public. It requires us to clearly demonstrate how regulatory actions translate into improved service delivery, enhanced business confidence, and strengthened accountability across the economy. Indeed, even before members of the public see, feel, or ultimately judge us by the impact of our regulatory actions, we should already have robust internal mechanisms that enable us to assess our effectiveness, identify gaps, and demonstrate tangible outcomes. In doing so, we ensure that our impact is intentional, measurable, and defensible. Further, as the leadership of regulatory authorities and agencies, you are required to continuously undertake sensitization and engagement with your junior officers, key stakeholders, implementing agencies, and the public where appropriate. This will ensure that policy and reform messages effectively cascade to lower operational levels and are translated into consistent, timely, and effective implementation. The Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service looks forward to witnessing this measurable progress when he convenes and presides over the third annual Revitalization and RE-ENERGISATION of Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference, scheduled to take place from 28th to 30th April 2026. Further information regarding the conference will be provided in the course of this engagement. Further, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service commends the leadership of all RAAs that received recognition in various forums during the year 2025, including the end-of-year gala dinner held in December 2025. This recognition is both an acknowledgement of progress made and a call to all of us to do better. As we look forward to even greater achievements in 2026, we are on this journey together and no institution will be left behind. As the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service has consistently underscored, we must do better collectively and decisively. The expectations and demands of Kenyans leave no room for mediocrity. Finally, on behalf of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, I wish you productive deliberations in this engagement and look forward to receiving the next consolidated reports from the standing committees by 9th April 2026. We appreciate your continued cooperation and count on your full and active participation in today's deliberations. With those remarks, I would now like to invite Dr. Linda Musumba to take us through the next context setting. Thank you, and once again, you are most welcome. Welcome, Dr.
Thank you very much, our Principal Administrative Secretary, Mr. Athalsia, for that message that you have been able to give to us. And I greet all our regulatory authorities and agencies who are gathered in this Zoom. I think it's not too late to still say Happy New Year, so Happy New Year to you. And we are very delighted to be able to meet on this space together and be able to just remind ourselves some of the things that are important and that we need to be able to pursue during the course of this 2026. Just to say that some of us are enjoying the hospitality of the Kenya School of Government, of course, a government facility here in Mombasa, as we pursue some of the things we've been requested or required to do by the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. So in case there are any regulators, which I know that there are regulators in Mombasa, and you think there's opportunity or scope even to just have one or to share one or two words, you're welcome to let us know. The Head of Public Service, I think Wanausia, in his initial conversation, perhaps mentioned it, sends his greetings. He was not in a position to be in this meeting today. However, he looks forward to being able to interact with you during the 3rd annual Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference that will take place on between the 28th and the 30th of April this year at a venue that is going to be shared as the time goes by. So he looks forward to that conference, and we look forward to again reuniting with you all to continue the conversation on regulators. So just to repeat my greetings, number one, I greet chairpersons of boards who are in this forum. Within the regulatory space, we understand, of course, that the chairpersons of boards provide leadership. And then, of course, chairpersons of board are accompanied in the work that they do with board members. One of the board members is the chairperson of the core mandate committee, the committee that deals with the core mandate of that institution. And that core mandate is the one, of course, that reflects or reviews on behalf of the board and presents to the board what it is that is the job of that regulator. You also have the chairperson of the board audit committee, the board audit committee that works closely with the head of internal audit to be able to look at the commitments that have been made by the institution or that are required of the institution, and be able to present them to the board audit committee to be able to assess that if the performance contract of your regulatory authority said you're going to produce 6 books, that indeed 6 books were produced in the case of a regulator that does publications. In the case of a regulator that is supposed to ensure enforcement or enhancement of particular issues, again, it is the internal auditor's job to also make sure that you're looking at the performance contract. You're also looking at the constitutive statute, the statute that brought you to into being, and that spells out or stipulates what your particular role is. Then, in addition to the chairperson and the board, I also extend greetings to the chief executive officers who are within this forum. We're aware the chief executive officers, of course, undertake implementation as guided by the board. And therefore, whatever the regulatory mandate of the RAAs that are within this forum, the chief executive officer is the one who runs with the programs that have been approved by the board, and therefore will create that enabling environment for the different implementing agencies that are under that regulatory authority or agency to be able to carry out their role or responsibility. We're aware that regulators, of course, handle different spaces. We have regulators that undertake work that is public, that has a public nature. For instance, regulators such as, let's say, NTSA, you deal with the public because you're regulating the driving behavior of all the human beings who have vehicles, and also regulating the behavior of other entities that are within that space as well. We have regulators like NEMA that is also regulating the behavior of Kenyans with respect to the way we relate with the environment. Then we have regulators that are dealing with certain special categories of persons or entities or whatever. So you have, for example, the Capital Markets Authority that deals with the entities that are in that space. The Kenya Medical Dentists and Practitioners Board that deals with persons working within the health institution. So what I'm trying to expound the fact that our regulatory role or mandate, whether it be that has a public nature or whether it be one that deals with special interest groups, we have the CEOs are the ones who run with implementing programs. Then I also greet the corporation secretaries within this forum, very important category of persons that guides the meetings of the board and brings to the remembrance of the board items that have been discussed in previous board meetings. This is to say, for example, in the previous board meeting or 3 board meetings ago, it was agreed to carry out certain actions. That corporation secretary assists the board to keep the records and therefore enable the tracking and the monitoring of that particular task or role. And therefore, also bringing to the attention of the board any regulations or laws that are required to be crafted or drafted, and being able to guide them through that process together with the stakeholders that are concerned. Another category of persons within this meeting is the heads of internal audit. The heads of internal audit are already indicated previously, a category of persons that is important in being able to ensure that the tracking and monitoring of the respective regulatory mandate of the regulators is actually undertaken, bringing to the attention of the board those things that have been done or not done through the work that they do with the board audit committee. The other group of persons that I want to be able to also extend my greetings to is the standing committees on the revitalization and re-energization of regulatory authorities and agencies. These are entities within the state departments appointed by the principal secretary to assist the principal secretary to carry out the oversight role that is required for regulators within the respective state departments. These standing committees carry out a very important role in being able to follow up, in being able to mentor, in being able to give the different regulators within the state departments the support that they require to be able to achieve what they need. So, for example, within the ambit of the standing committees, it has come to the attention of the principal secretary, to the attention of the office of the chief of staff and head of the public service about boards that have not been fully constituted. In fact, in conversation with some of you, in the run-up to this meeting, we have learned of course, boards that are not fully constituted or circumstances or situations where there are changes that require action from these offices. In the course of his work, Mr. Mwaniki, who is the Director for Regulatory Compliance here at the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service, has attended meetings with standing committees that have called the different regulators under their wings. And we've seen some amazing work being done by the different standing committees, and we're really grateful for the role that they play, because then they provide the eyes and ears both for the PS and for the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. And the reason why I have gone through each and every one of the actors or players who are in this meeting is just to be able to highlight the important role that each member plays, and that the chairperson of the board will not be able to do this work alone. Neither will board members, neither will the CEO, neither will the standing committees, the internal auditor, or the corporation secretary. It is a necessary loop, and that's why these meetings, when they're called, bring together all of you in one room so that the message is the same and that it is uniform, so that everybody understands what they're supposed to do. So we are now 3 years down in this campaign for the revitalization and re-energization of regulatory authorities and agencies. We're happy to be together, in this journey. When we started, of course, things were new to all of us, but I think one of the things that we were committed to, and that you as regulators committed to, is to be able to do that which is necessary to raise, the capacity and levels of service that we render to Kenyans, because that is the promise this administration made to Kenyans. And so here we are now 3 years down the road, and clearly it's very important that one should be able to look at one question that was in the self-assessment tool. If you remember, this is where that journey began. You filled out the fact-finding self-assessment tool, and one question in that tool was, what is it that people will see on the ground if you're working optimally? I would encourage that you go back and look at that tool, because in some instances, when we visit with organizations, or when the head of public service is speaking with different organizations, you see we have these files for all institutions. And when he looks at this file and then maybe puts, different questions or different, things to, let's say, the institutions, it appears sometimes information is forgotten. It appears sometimes information could have slipped by. Sometimes we've had changes in the institution where you have a new CEO, but who has not seen that fact finding that was filled by their institution at that time. So just going back to that, I think is important to be able to remember and remind ourselves what we filled at that time are the things that will be seen on the ground when your regulatory authority and agency is working optimally. That's what this is all about, making sure that we are working optimally. Again, I say congratulations to the regulatory authorities and agencies that received recognition during the dinner that took place in Kisumu at the end of the year, where, of course, there was the reflection on 2025 with a look at 2026. So I just want to say that some of the things that result in those recognitions stem from two things. One of which is, or three things, your biannual reports. This is the reason why this Zoom has been called, so that even as we fill the biannual reports, we are clear on what we are doing and what we need to do. So the biannual reports, we study them, and we're able to triangulate information from those biannual reports with what is on the ground. For example, reports that come from research reports that come from organizations such as KIPRA, or look at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, look at different economic analyses, and then you're able to look at what has been filled by a regulator within the biannual report, and be able to then, see how all these things fit together. So from those biannual reports, if you recall, the last biannual report that you filled asked you to upload information from the previous years. So when we are able to look at that and analyze that, then you can see progress from one level to another for the different regulatory authorities and agencies. I urge that when you fill these reports, fill them, of course, truthfully, and honestly, and then take your time to be able to look inward within the institution and fill it as best as you can. Because then looking at the information in the biannual reports and looking at the progress over the different courses of these biannual reports And then you're able to then also look at the reports in the press when you look at regulatory action, because regulatory action is public. Whatever it is that you do as a regulator has a public component because it is for the consumption of the public. The public is supposed to be aware. Therefore, are we seeing you in the, in the media? Does the public become aware of what it is that you're doing? The norms and standards that you're supposed to set as a regulator, are they visible? Are they known? Are people aware of them, and are they adhering? What action are you taking to ensure enforcement and to ensure, especially if you've got the requisite powers and authority for enforcement, what are you doing to ensure that people actually adhere to those things? So I cannot emphasize enough that the biannual reports being filled correctly and also using them for your own purpose to improve and enhance is very important. So the other one, of course, is visibility. When people look at the various media, because the only way for the public to know you and to know what you're doing is when you are putting yourself out there, whether through your websites, whether through participating in radio programs, whether in English, Kiswahili, or vernacular, whether you are using Zoom sessions such as these ones to be able to speak to people, webinars, whether you are appearing on the television or sending out information in whichever way, so that the public that you serve, depending on your mandate, becomes aware of what you're doing is extremely, extremely important. Because then that is the only way that the public can be able to know what you're doing. Just after this, I'm going to mention some of the regulatory action that we have seen in the very recent past, just so that you can be able to get an idea of what we mean when we say visibility. Then the last one, or the third one, is confirmation from the public. As you're aware, the head of the public service, in his capacity as the administrative head of the Office of the President, meets often with principal secretaries, cabinet secretaries sometimes, and meets often with you, CEOs, chairpersons, and the public. The public, of course, the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service is a public office. And so the public often comes to his office to be able to bring complaints, to be able to bring compliments, and be able to interact with him. And so oftentimes he will receive information from around the country regarding different things. And therefore it becomes apparent, whether through letters written to the office or whether they come and have face-to-face meetings with him, we do receive a lot of information from the public that points out to areas that they're happy about or areas that they're not happy about. Institutions do write. So a lot of correspondence coming from the entire country that gives indication about whether, as a regulator, you're carrying out your roles and responsibilities. So we look forward to the recognition that will be given this year, at the end of this year. And that will, of course, come from the work that we are doing right now as regulators going forward. And of course, in the course of this year. So I congratulate those who received recognition this year, and we look forward to the picture that as it will be towards the end of this year. As I come to a close to welcome my colleague, Alex Mwaniki, I do want to emphasize on something that was discussed quite early on, which is regulators. What does it mean to be a regulator? What is the role of a regulator generally? And of course, being a regulator means that you set norms and standards. When one walks into a restaurant, and you see, when you set norms and standards, you're creating order. When you set norms and standards, you're creating order. So when one walks into a restaurant, do they see order? What do they see that makes them realize that we have a regulator that deals with the environment within a restaurant, the environment within the transport sector? When you're driving along the road, do you see order? When you use a public restroom facility, do you see order? Order in the design of that facility, order in the way that it is kept clean, order in the way or in the rules and everything that is available to control or regulate the way that matter from that facility is dealt with. When you use any of the transport facilities, do we know who is on a bus or a matatu from one place to the other, especially when you're talking about long distances? passenger manifest, do we know who is where? Do we know what we're supposed to do in every environment that we get into, whether it is in the banking industry, the Capital Markets Authority, whether it is in the aviation sector, whether it is whichever sector it is there order? And I think that is one test that you can apply yourself to be able to determine whether you're succeeding in your regulatory role, setting norms and standards, telling us how we should behave. I think we all recall the COVID period where we were given different norms and standards that we had to follow. I cite the COVID era because it was new, and therefore there were new things. We were taught new behaviors. We were taught new things that we should do to be able to avoid COVID and to keep safe. So in your regulatory environment, does one see order when they think about the regulator that you are? And this is what the head of public service is talking about, that when he moves around this country, together with the principal secretaries, together with the cabinet, together with the president, do they see the order that is supposed to be seen in that particular environment? And so I think this is a question that, of course, you'll need to be able to reflect on. Regulatory action. Regulatory action that is available to you, of course, includes different ways in which you highlight what you as a regulator are supposed to do, as well as enforce. So, for example, in the recent past, we've seen like the Commission for University Education released a notice that outlined which the bona fide universities, or released a notice that advised the public about universities that are illegitimate or that are not legal. And this is very important. Just putting out that notice, it advises people who are about to spend their money, their hard-earned money, to spend 3 years, 2 years, 4 years within an institution, only for them to not be able to graduate. So such a notice is very, very important to bringing to the public's attention this. The question then that also arises beyond that, putting up that notice, what happens? Do you shut? Or do you leave it to and hope that Kenyans everywhere will have seen that notice? We are aware about the limitations that there are in the reach to social media or even all other media. So what happens beyond that? We also saw the the Council of Legal Education also put out a notice advising the public about which are the bona fide law schools, indicating very clearly in that notice when the license for each institution was granted, how long that license lasts, and the amount of time that is left for each to renew. This is a notice, of course, advising those parents who would wish to take their children to law school or children who wish to join. Then you have, for example, the National Construction Authority, which also released a notice asking the public to be able to look at their website, to be able to know whether a contractor is actually within, is properly within their mandate, or is actually licensed or is recognized by the National Construction Authority for the period in question to be able to undertake their duties. Again, regulatory action. Then you have, of course, as a regulator, again, we've seen the National Construction Authority on a number of occasions where we've had, unfortunate incidents of buildings collapsing, because we are not saying that as a regulator, things will not go wrong. But when they go wrong, what is the action that you take to be able to provide confidence to the public within that environment that you are on top of things and that you're taking care? You see, the whole gamut of regulatory action also requires for you to be able to make the public feel comfortable about your role as a regulator, being able to protect and being able to, again, set those norms and standards and reset them when those standards have been affected. We've also seen the Kenya Bureau of Standards issuing warnings, notices, the Anti-Counterfeit Authority giving information to the public about those things that are counterfeit, the standards that are therefore required for the different goods and services, both by the Kenya Bureau of Standards as well as the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. Just only yesterday, we were looking at a notice that was put out by the Communications Authority regarding a number of mobile phones that do not pass the test or that have not been authorized for use in our market. And I dare say that, looking at the list of those funds, there was hardly, any that I recognized or my colleagues were aware of, but will obviously be in the market and for which the consumer requires that protection. So once again, being able to provide the market with the information required. Question still remains, what happens when people continue selling these things? Are we then going on to prosecute? Are we then going on to be able to do this? Then we have the SASRA, that is the SACCO's regulatory authority, which suspended the licenses for multiple SACCOs that are operating not within the required regulations issued by that authority, saving the public from their money, going to waste or getting into institutions that they ought not to. NACADA, we've seen a lot of enforcement action around the country as you go around carrying out your regulatory role in respect, of course, to illicit and illegal, alcohol. Then you have today, just this afternoon, as I was just reviewing, the different regulatory action, I saw the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council that has issued a notice asking for mandatory verification of ownership and registration of records for all health facilities. As a regulator, between the last time that you took information and details from your implementing agencies and until now, there's of course institutions that will come up subsequently. So what are you doing to ensure that at all times you are maintaining watch and at all times that you are aware of what is happening out there? Many a time we see reports of and names of institutions, or for example, when we see the minister or the cabinet secretary for health saying that such and such institutions don't exist, such and such produce, were actually produce records for SHA to be able to pay them, and they don't exist. So as a regulator, do you know who is where and is doing what? What measures have you put on the ground to be able to make sure that you are 24/7 aware of what's going on? I can just maybe list another one, Capital Markets Authority, that has been able to license 5 new entrants into that market so that they're able to operate in our markets. Again, as a regulator, you are facilitating people who want to do business, people who want to get into spaces. You are facilitating them to be able to do that. You recall the head of public service indicating previously that a regulator, you're not just there to penalize and to break down, but it is to provide those people who want to get into that space with the mentorship and with the help that they need to be able to do something. So for example, an approach would be, before shutting down everybody in this particular sector that you're in, you probably can be able to call them for a meeting, have a conversation with them and tell them what the standards are, give them time to comply, protected time to comply. And then where they don't then comply, of course, then you can take the action of shutting down. So before shutting down, because this, of course, occasions difficulties for Kenyans, you want to be able to be as facilitative as possible to be able to do that. Then also another thing that I saw for the Capital Markets Authority is the scandal that took place where they of course have been able to penalize the people from the Chase Bank, the board for Chase Bank, for misleading investors to the tune of something worth a 10 billion bond. So at the end of the day, as was said by the head of public service, if regulators do their job, then the promise made by this administration to Kenyans will be achieved. And generally, because Kenyans, regulators are the first point where people will feel that this government is working or this public service is working. And so just to encourage all the members within this forum, playing the different roles that you're playing, that you matter. Each and every regulator within this environment is important. The role you play is important. And as again, the head of public service always says, in the respective responsibilities that we have, we're there for a season, only for a short time. And for the time that we're there, can we just do our best to be able to, achieve, what it is that we're supposed to achieve? For the short time that you're a chairperson, You're a CEO, you're a head of internal audit, you're a corporation secretary, you are a standing committee. Can we just do the best that we can to be able to achieve that? And for now, even as I yield and give my colleague, Alex Moniki, the opportunity to be able to take us through the rest of the program, I just want to say thank you to you as regulators for the cooperation that you extend to our office here, the Office of Audit, Legal and Regulatory Compliance, in the course of our work, as we try our best to be able to do what we're here at your service. And if you require anything, like you're looking for maybe a certain record, or you're looking for a certain document that we may have dealt with previously, you're wondering how to fill your biannual report, you're wondering how to do whatever it is, please feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to be able to assist in any way that we can, as we work together towards, of course, the Kenya that it is that we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daktari, for that context setting. I must say that it has gone beyond context setting and covered quite a bit of the next session. And the next session will only have two elements of this sensitization. And the first is just an overview, or rather just an overview of this campaign. And the reason the overview is important is because we do note that there are new members who've joined as chairpersons, people who have joined as CEOs who may not have been part of this journey, and we'll do a very quick recap of why this is important, and then speak to the second aspect of the second biannual reports, which I'm certain you're all aware are due on 31st of March. And perhaps maybe just before we dive into the presentation, a quick reminder of those who joined us after we had done the ground rules at the beginning. Please remember to register yourself in the chat section. And in the chat section, as you do so, please indicate your name, your designation, as well as your institution. We have seen there are those who are sitting in groups and actually introducing themselves in groups. We have seen the Scrap Metal Council, I think, has 2 members in one device. We've seen the message from the Competition Authority indicating the 4 people who are required to be in this meeting are actually present, as well as the Kenya Film Classification, where you have the acting CEO, the corporation secretary, the heads of internal audit, again, using one device. So we welcome that, because that record forms part of the record to the head of public service on who attended, who did not, and the reasons were, on the reasons why. And perhaps for the CEOs who are also present, again, reiterating what has been indicated by our PAS and Dr. Musumba, it's important that to ensure that all the players in this space are present so that the message is the same. And we request that you're able to facilitate by your chairpersons, your corporation secretaries, as well as your heads of internal audit to be present in this in this session. So we then quickly dive into the presentation. It's a short presentation which will cover the fundamentals, basically the fundamentals of this campaign to revitalize and re-energize. Why does the campaign, or rather, what does the campaign seek to achieve? Who are the key actors in the space? The current stage we are in, Dr. Musumba did indicate we are in year 3 of this campaign. Then what are the resources that are available? Again, towards the end of her remarks, she did also mention where these information will be present. What are the next steps and the upcoming engagement? Our past did make reference to the upcoming engagement was a conclusion. So the fundamentals of this campaign, and I think it's not enough to repeat why this was instituted. It is not enough to indicate why this is being done. And perhaps it's important to just indicate to what, especially for our new people, is what this is an initiative reform that was started by the head of public service in 2023. And really, it was established to restore effectiveness, visibility, accountability, and impact in the execution of your mandates as regulators. And I think so much has been said at the beginning that this is now being visible. The head of public service feels and has seen and has experienced your visibility and your impact in the various sectors that have been referred to. And again, also, this is to anchor a structured reporting, as we'll be speaking about it, the issues of supervision, both from the point of the principal secretaries through their standing committees on revitalization and re-energizations of RAAs, peer learning, which has happened in the last two annual conferences, and of course, the continuous improvement that is required. And in that scale, in that entire ecosystem, we are engaging 125 regulatory authorities and agencies within 38 state departments, with each state department then having a standing committee, which is the eyes and ears of the principal secretaries and the reporting framework to the head of public service. And basically, we are talking about a whole of government approach in the regulatory reform initiative, and not just an isolated reporting exercise. It has to be end to end. And what then does this campaign seek to achieve? And I think all of us as regulators must reflect: have we achieved these things, or at what stage or level of achievement are we at as a regulator? You sitting as a chairperson, as a CEO, and you look at, this is our mandate as a regulator. Where are we? How can we rate ourselves? And the first, of course, is to strengthen that execution of your core mandate as one of the things that the campaign seeks to achieve. The issue of the improvement of quality, timeliness, and the consistency of the service, the regulatory service that you deliver as a regulator. The issues of visibility, which then builds the credibility of RAAs to the citizens and the stakeholders. At the end of our execution of our mandates, we have the citizenry, we have the public, we have the various stakeholders to whom we serve or we attend to. Then, of course, there has the fourth thing that the campaign sought to achieve was addressing those institutional, the systemic, the operational, and gaps that existed to enable you then perform optimally. And this has been a continuous process. There are those that have been identified. There are those that have been resolved as we speak, and we've seen this throughout. If you look at the reports that you submitted from the first one in October 2024, the second one in March 2025, the third in October 2025, we have seen these gaps or these challenges reduce in a significant way, again, through the involvement of your respective PS, as well as the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. Now, again, the fifth thing the campaign sought to achieve was promoting that coordination and the synergies that are created so that we avoid the duplication of mandates. And this was an issue that arose particularly at the beginning of this campaign with the percentages, the very high percentages we had of regulators indicating that one of the challenges that they experienced was on overlaps of mandates. We are doing this, there's also another body doing this. And so that, of course, then created a problem. And we have again seen some of you have managed to overcome these duplications. And we'll be looking forward again when we look at the reports in March of are there any few or are there any regulators that are still having this issue of duplication of roles and what is being done about it. And lastly, the evidence-based then would inform what administrative, what policy, what legislative interventions should be done or are required to be done, and what role does the head of public service then have in order to help you in achieving all these issues. Now, the actors, these ones have remained the same. We have, in this entire campaign, we have the Office of the Chief of Staff, Head of Public Service, and below that, we have the 38 principal secretaries who head the state departments in which all of you are housed. And in those 38 state departments, we have 38 standing committees that have been appointed by the principal secretary to help and ensure that the work of the coming from the chief of staff and head, and as well as the PSs in respect to this campaign is achieved and done very well. The standing committees really are the ears and the ears, the eyes, and they offer mentorship and guide and correct and assist where they need to. And this is done before then whatever is the issue is escalated to the chief of staff and public service. And we have that 125 of you present on this call as CEOs who are then answerable to your respective PSs. And of course, ensuring that you adhere to all the call for optimal performance. You are the head of the secretariat, and I think Dr. Musumba spoke to this at length. And at the bottom, at the very bottom, we have the citizens or the stakeholders or the publics or name it that we serve. And these will be the people who will be telling all of us in this chain of how are we performing as regulators. They are the feedback mechanism that we are struggling in this sector, yet we have a regulator, or we are excelling in this sector, the regulator has been excellent. And so on, it's important to just highlight this hierarchy of the key actors or key players in this space because there is a role to everyone. But then again, at the end of the day, the judge is at the bottom. It's the citizens or the stakeholders, the publics who will tell us, are we performing or are we not? Do we need to change this? Do we need to change that? Are we facilitating or just, is it a kiboko kind of just, exercise? So moving on, the current stage, Dr. Musumba did indicate on the third year of the implementation. And this is the year where there's a shift, as they call it, the paradigm shift from the establishment and diagnostics that has been done. And we are now in the year where there's measurement, evaluation, and impact. And this really, the third year where there's measurement, evaluation, and impact will generally be the theme around the third conference as we have been guided by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. So it is a year that we will see a lot of measurement, evaluation, and impact. And it's a year of reflection, you as leaders in these regulatory bodies and agencies, to sit back and see when we measure our progress, when we measure our, what impact do we have? If we are performing optimally, what is being seen on the ground? What should not be seen on the ground? And is that which should not be seen being seen? So we will have further conversations around these elements of measurement, evaluation, and impact. And it will form part of the current year's activities around the RAAs. And of course, there's then the issue of the revised reporting tool, which we'll speak to again shortly. So what is required at this particular point of the campaign from the regulatory authorities and agencies? And this is the whole composition with the chairperson at the top, with the CEO and his senior members of staff, ensuring that there's submission of an accurate and complete biannual reports by 31st of March. That is important. And I think Dr. Musumba was very clear and categorical about why that accuracy is important. Now, so there's that first element. And again, also as regulators, we have a responsibility, we have a duty to demonstrate progress, corrective actions, and outcomes. Again, these will also be part of the discussions that we will have amongst ourselves during the third annual conference. On the standing committees, the expectation from the Chief of Staff, Head of Public Service, will be your continuous engagement with the RAAs, using the reporting tool and as the supervision instrument or any other instruments that you have so designed in your respective state departments to ensure that the best outcome is achieved. Now, you also do have a role, which is the submission of the analytical reports to Chief of Staff, Head of Public Service through your PSAs by the 9th of April. And you'll also note as standing committees, you will not achieve the 9th of April if your regulators don't achieve the 31st of March, because you're then intended to look at what has been submitted to you by the regulators and then submit an analytical report to the Head of Public Service. And of course, as has always been said, and as contained in the Executive Order of number 1 of 2025, one of the roles of the head of public service is to deal with any systemic or cross-cutting challenges that are escalated to his office. And if you are a regulator and you have systemic challenges that now require escalation to the chief of staff and head of public service, please do so. Please do so, because only then will the head of public service, address them. And only then can these then get off your reports as a continuous or constant challenge that limits you or that prohibits you from performing optimally. So basically, at this current stage we are at of the campaign, the overall expectation is to, basically evidence of improved regulatory performance and citizen impact. And I think there are so many examples that Dr. Musumba has given. We have many, because you have sent most of this to us. We have a team that skims through the media to just pick those regulatory actions that you keep posting and updating. Now, on the campaign resources, I think it's important, again, for people joining us for the first time in their various capacities, please note that we have all the reference materials of this campaign on the website of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. And when you go to that website, you will find all the circulars and directives under the circulars tab, and there will be a sub-tab of regulatory compliance. You will find all the circulars and directives that have been issued. You will find the reporting tools and the templates that we continuously update as guided by the Head of Public Service, the conference materials and presentations for previous conferences, as well as all the guidance notes and updates on the campaign that we have so submitted from time to time will be present, they'll be available on the website. And one of the commitments we are also making, ladies and gentlemen, is that after this session, the material specific to today's engagement will also be uploaded, and that will be uploaded immediately. And you as participants, because sometimes you want to find what has been uploaded on the website, our request to you on a regular basis, just check. As a CEO of a regulator, as a chairman, just check what is on the website about the RAAs, because you are the lead, you are the heads of these institutions. And perhaps you would want to always be appraised of the current status or updates that have been so posted on that campaign. And I think at this point also, it's important to indicate, and I think one of the challenges we've had in the past is when these calls for such meetings are done, SCAC is one of the offices in our office that is used to disseminate the circulars or the notices as soon as they are signed. So before the hard copy gets to your desk as a CEO, before a chairperson gets this document from the CEO, please always check the WhatsApp groups that are posted, particularly from the officials of SCAC. Mr. Indimuli would always post them on the CEO's forum, on the chairperson's forum. Please take time to read, because he always posts them as soon as they are signed, and to enable you then action or in good time, so that by the time the office is calling to follow up, you have already then complied with what is needed. And in the spirit of just what is coming next or looking ahead, so any other virtual engagements that the Head of Public Service will guide be had with yourselves, that will be communicated again in the same way. Advanced copies will be sent in good time, so that you're able then to diarize and commit some time then for that session. Then we've talked about the improved reporting qualities, and again, we'll speak to that in detail. The standing committees, again, you have a role to document your engagements and the analytical oversights. And one of the things looking ahead, again, we have to all be ready during the 3rd annual RAAs conference. This has been indicated, will be held 28th to 30th of April, 2026. The venue will be outside Nairobi for your planning purposes, but the exact location will be communicated to you in the next week or so that every member who is invited for the conference, including everyone who is on this call, that official communication is going to follow. But it's important to let you know so that you're able to diarize those 3 dates. It could be a 3-day conference, as has been the case. And there are many things that the head of public service intends to then make his pronouncements on, and which may see, I mean, this is we've held the first 3, and there are many things that he wants to say about the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and going forward. So we look forward again to very interactive and robust engagements during that 3rd annual conference, and be on the lookout for the communication so that you're able to prepare and attend accordingly. But in the meantime, please diarize the 28th and the 30th of April, 2026. So in conclusion, I think one of the things that is clear as day from the Chief of Staff in Public Service, that the campaign is firmly in its delivery and accountability stage, and that all actors must remain engaged and aligned. No, the leadership of RAAs, who are all present on this call, and this is a clarion call. The Principal Administrative Secretary referred to this in his opening remarks in the message from the Chief of Staff, that yourselves as well must continuously sensitize and engage your internal teams. We note with appreciation the persons present on this call are the heads, really, in various categories, and Dr. Musuma did indicate. But you have a whole array of staff in your respective departments who need to hear this message, who you lead and who you need to continuously sensitize and engage. So the head of public service is saying, engage your internal teams from your mid-level management all the way down. Engage your stakeholders, engage the publics that you superintend. And this is to ensure the reform message does not remain with you as the leaders of these RAAs, but goes all the way down. And that way you're able to effectively translate this into consistent, timely, for consistent and timely implementation, so that the message is not just with the top, it has to be cascaded down all the way to the bottom. And as I indicated, the head of public service looks forward to to receiving the biannual reports in March, and of course the robust outcome-focused deliberations during the 3rd annual conference. That brings me to the end of this part of the presentation. I will then quickly just take you through the I'll take you through the reporting tool for March, even as you get ready to populate that and share with your standing committees before by 31st of March. So I'll pull that up quickly. All right. I hope you can see the screen. All right. So this is the tool. It's the 3rd edition of the reporting tool. You'll recall in October of last year, we did a virtual with yourselves and just took you through the reporting tool. And I must say, some of the reports we've received have been quite impressive. We've been able to do a good analysis as expected. We still do have a few hiccups, and as Dr. Musumba indicated, if you have any challenges, if you need any clarification or any guidance subsequent to these meetings in filling and populating this tool, please reach out to us. And that is why some of us have a salary at the end of the month, is because we exist to serve. So feel free to reach out to us. We have sat with various regulators. We have sat with standing committees, and we are happy to also do so in the event that you need any assistance in populating this document. So I'll quickly just run through the 4-page document. The background has remained the same, save for the fact that you should read this tool together with the 1st and 2nd edition. The 1st edition is the one that existed before October 2025. The 2nd edition was presented to yourselves in October 2025, and this is the third edition, again, which is also available, which will also be available after this virtual on the website of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service. Now, the following documents which have been submitted to this office of the Chief of Staff Head of Public Service by yourselves will also remain documents that you should read this tool together with. And those are the initial fact-finding self-assessment tool that was submitted in 2023, the biannual reports that you've already submitted in October 2024, March 2025, and November 2025. And again, the reiteration that the issuance of this edition is basically because of the progress of the campaign. As the campaign progresses, so does the tool progress. It becomes shorter until at a time when it is clear to all of us that we have revitalized and re-energized. So again, it's important to also reiterate why this is being done, again, in line with the mandate of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service as set out in the Executive Order number 1 of 2025, basically gives the Head of Public Service certain responsibilities that I'm certain you're all aware of, but at the end, you all remember that he is responsible for the overall effectiveness in the public service. Again, so that's just the background. You will get a chance to look at this, but I just want to dive straight into the tool itself. The first bit on the details of the RA remains the same, save for the last item number 6, where the Head of Public Service is requesting or requiring that we indicate if there have been any changes in the board since the last submission in November 2025. And here the expectation is that there's an expiry of a term of a chairperson, we have a new chairperson, expiry of term of a CEO, board member, and so on. So this is the place where you will indicate those details. And it's important because this campaign then has to continue even post ourselves existing as certain officers with certain responsibilities from time to time. So that it should not be a campaign that is premised on with the CEO as a person, but it should be with the institution. So a CEO exiting, a chairperson exiting, a head of internal audit exiting, a corporation secretary exiting, then it does not then kill the momentum. Because at the end of the day, once there's that optimal performance of an entity, then we have been fair to the members of the public or to the citizens that we serve in the execution of our mandates. So the first bit remains technically the same. Now on number 2, if you recall in the second edition, the requirement was uploading the grid that you had submitted in October of 2024. Now, this third edition requires you to upload only 2 grids. The one that you submitted to Costs and Hops in April 2025. Number 2, you upload the grid. And that's why we always share this document as a Word document, because then you're able to quickly and easily do your edits. So Roman 2 is you upload the grid, and this is on the frequency of deployment of the powers or authority that you've been granted that you submitted. So Roman 1 and Roman 2, it's purely a copy paste. You copy what you submitted in April 2025, copy that which you posted in November 2025, and you paste them there. Now, number 3 will be what you will be required to upload for the period now running from November after you submitted to March, end of March. And then this is the grid now showing the frequency of the deployment of your powers and authority uploaded there. So we'll have 3 grids. And the 3 grids tell a story. The 3 grids tell a story of how have we deployed our powers or authority as a regulator. Now, once those 3 grids are there, the question now, the requirement is on number 4, where you're comparing those 3 grids. And as you compare and contrast, you're providing explanations about the differences. This has gone upwards for this reason, downwards for this reason. And what are the changes in the trends and patterns? Again, this hasn't changed from what you submitted in the previous second edition report. The only thing that changes is now you're only comparing the last two. So that's on the frequency of deployment of powers. And the grids are important because the grids are fed into a system maintained in the office that is then analyzed and give the graphs and tell the story of each regulator based on the grids that you have just posted in this in this report. And I think this is actually is what really informs the head of public service. Where are we once he opens the system and clicks on any regulator, he's able to tell the story from the analysis of those grids. Now, on number 3, this is always a very interesting question where you rate yourselves. And your rating is based on the grids that you have submitted. In your capacity as a regulator, where do you rate yourself? Are we poor? Are we doing average? Are we fair? And again, this is important because if you look at the last 3 reports and you look at the rating, is it a constant rating of poor? Because then there's a problem. Are we just playing safe and saying fair, good? Or have we then moved from average to good to now, excellent? And again, as we indicated in the 3rd year, it's an issue of, talking about measurement, evaluation, and impact. So the focus here is trying to see if you're not in D and E of good and excellent at year 3, what is the problem? What needs to be done? And so on. So again, accurate and of sincere performance, because that is again what informs what actions should be taken. 3.2 doesn't change. If you assess yourself in the band of that, provide some details as what are the key enablers. And again, this is important because during the conference, you will also be telling and informing those who are not in 8 and 10, what are those things that you have done to ensure your performance is at 8 to 10. And of course, if you do not score 10, again, what are the reasons? And there could be a reason. It's important to keep reflecting what are these reasons that are making us not be at excellent by year 3 of this campaign. Now, on number 4, so there are 2 grids that are coming in. The first element in number 2 is on the frequency of, the frequency of deployment of authority as regulators. On number 4 is on impact. The impact of you exercising your regulatory mandate. So again, you upload the grid for October 2025 and the grid for March. So here you're only going back once. The same grid you submitted in October 2025, you'll be submitting it now, uploading it there, and your new grid has the things that you have done between November and March. What is their impact in your space? What is that impact? Then you account for the difference between 1 and 2. And number 4, if there was no change between 1 and 2, then provide for an explanation of the same. So our impact, it's even use a percentage, was at 60% when we submitted in October. It's still at 60%. Does it mean there's no movement? I mean, what does that mean? Just create a clear picture so that when HOPS looks at this, he's able to see are we achieving, do we have an impact in us exercising our mandate and performing at optimal levels? Now, the 5th, again, this has been, nothing has changed. The head of public service wants to know between November, when we submitted the reports, and March 2026, have you, as an entity, received any external recognition or acknowledgement regarding the execution and performance of your role, either from the public or other stakeholders, the citations for the same awards, whether locally or internationally, regarding the execution and performance of your mandate? And I know there are those regulators who will be very quick to answer this session because they were recognized during the last end of year dinner. But I think the head of public service wants to know, have you, whether internally or externally, received any recognition? And this is important also, the issue, and I think even as we talk about measurement, accountability, and impact, there's what has to be done as part of the work, but also are there any recognitions that we require then for you to cite? Now, the dates, and I think this is important, is the dates remain 31st of March for when the regulators should submit to your respective standing committee with a copy to the Office of the Head of Public Service. And I must emphasize, it is important before that, by that 31st of March, please copy at the Office of the Chief of Staff. There's an email that has always been provided. The email is on this tool. So once you send to your standing committee on that 1st of March, please do a copy to the office. Then the standing committees and chairs present, please take note. The analytical reports to the Office of Chief of Staff through the PSAs is Thursday, the 9th of April. It is after receipt of these two sets of reports, and particularly also on the analytical one, that will form, once the team does the analysis of these reports, it will form a big chunk of the third conference, which will then happen 2 weeks after the 9th of April, and that being 28th and 30th of April 2026. So the email is provided. Once you send your copy to the standing committee, please do a copy to HOPS's office. And for the reports from the standing committees, please always do an advance copy. Hard copies have a way of getting, getting delayed. So once you send an email, then it's quickly acted on, and we request that you do the same by end of those dates. So the heads of internal audit, and I think we'll Dr. Musumba did indicate in a very clear way that you have a role to ensure that all these things are done. That brings us to the end of today's session. I don't know whether there are any questions, comments, that we can take a few so that we're able to conclude this session by 3:30 and to enable yourselves to get back to your other duties. I thank you all, and I welcome questions, concerns that we can quickly answer. And if there are none at this particular time, you have our email address. Please feel free. You have our contacts. Please reach out. We exist to serve you, and we will be available as we expect you to be available for the people you superintend. And as you go out also to do such engagements, not only with your internal staff and stakeholders, but also with all the people that you superintend, the members of the public, if you're a regulator that deals with members of the public, what platforms are you using to reach out to these people? You are welcome to use our Zoom facilities. They're available for use during this period of February or up until around 9th, 10th of March. So if you need to host a big meeting of about 10,000 people, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to assist you with that. So if there are any questions, we'll be happy to quickly take them. Or there's someone indicating, clarify that the meeting is for regulators only, that the second A in RA is not clear. And I must say that the second A, so the RA, and this is actually a word coined by some of you during our first conference. This is regulatory authorities and agencies. So R for regulatory, A for authorities, and the last A for agencies. That's how the name RA was coined by, I forget the name of, it was a chairman who was speaking during the very first engagement that we had. Can your office provide guidance on the rating so that it's objective? I think the rating here is done by yourselves. It is a self rating. It is you self-assessing yourself based on the grades that you have provided. And on one end, and here the scale you're using is, are we performing optimally? Yeah. So it's from, the rating actually is drawn from the frequency in which you deploy your regulatory power authority. So you would be self-rating yourself, not us rating you. It's the other way. So that's how the rating is done. It is done by yourselves as an entity, and it is from your rating that we then make an analysis and provide a report. I do not see any other questions in the Q&A, but I must at this point thank all of you for paying attention. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you very much for introducing yourselves in the chat section. The team will collate all the names and prepare a registration list. We will also upload the documents that we have just gone through today. We will upload them on HOPS's website. Again, you'll have the PowerPoint presentation. You will also have this revised form in a Word version, so that way you'll be able to have access to it and also use it. If there will be any further questions, reach out to us on email, call us on the mobile phone provided, and we'll be happy and ready to attend to you. And because I have the internal auditors present on this call, this is to remind you of the audit meeting rather, that the head of public service has called, that will be held tomorrow again at 9 o'clock in the morning. Please make sure you register for that one as well. The link is up on HOPS's website, and there will be now more conversations again around the audit space, one of the campaigns that the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service is running. That is tomorrow in the morning at 9 o'clock. Now in the afternoon, and CEOs, please help me. There's a meeting. If you look at the circular of the schedule of meetings, there's a meeting of the heads of HR. Again, CEOs, please ensure that all your HR personnel are registered and dial in. There will be a team then taking the members of HR through certain directives from the head of public service, and this will be done together with the Public Service Commission. So audit people, 9 o'clock, HR personnel or HR function at 2 p.m. So thank you very much. We'll see you then, and I wish you all a great evening. Asanteni sana.